Inferno, Canto 18. Description of the eighth circle, divided into 10 gulfs. This canto treats only of the first two, in which are punished those who have been guilty of seduction and flattery. The first are scourged by demons, the second immersed in filth.
There is in hell a place stone-built throughout, called Malbolge, of an iron hue, like to the wall that circles it about. Full in the middle of this baleful land yawns the deep gulf of ample size to view, whose form and proper place shall be explained. The circling boundary that remains beside, twixt the rock's basis and the gulf profound, 10 bastions to its lowest depth divide, as is the form presented to the eye, by fortresses whose massive walls around run numerous trenches for security. Such was the semblance which these dikes displayed, and from the threshold of such castles strong, as bridges to the outer bank are laid, so from the basis of the rock extend, bridges across the moles and valleys flung, far as the ample gulf in which they end. Here was it that, released from Gerion's back, we found ourselves, and then the poet drew on toward the left, and I pursued his track. Upon the right new tortures I beheld, new pains and ministers of vengeance new, with which the first recess throughout was filled. Down in the gulf were naked souls descried. Some from the middle were advancing, some were journeying with us, but with greater stride, so o'er the bridge the concourse to convey, which flocks the year of Jubilee to Rome. Means are devised to form a double way, that on the one side all preserve in front, the castle to St. Peter's as they throng, all on the other journey to the mount. Now here, now there, upon the ramparts high, horned fiends with rods enormous ran along, smiting the sinners' backs most cruelly. Alas, how from the lash excoriate, as the first stripe with swiftest heels they fled, a second or third none dare await. As we proceeded, one I chanced to see, whose face beholding instantly I said, surely his features are not new to me. Wherefore I paused to call him to my mind. His footsteps to my gracious guide withheld, giving me leave a while to turn behind. The suffering wretch, who'd thought his face to hide, bent down his head, but little it availed. Thou who art looking on the ground, I cried, unless thy features do thy name belie, Cassionymico must thou be, but tell, what to such pungent torture makes thee high? Reluctantly he said, shalt thou be told what thy clear speech compels me to reveal? Recalling to my mind the days of old. No, I am he who urged fair Gisela to yield obedience to the Marquis' will. This is the truth, whatever fame may say. We Bolognese so greatly here abound, that not twixt Reno and Savina's rill, so many tongues, I deem, could now be found, who utter Sepa in their country's phase. If proof of my assertion thou wouldst have, recall to mind our avaricious ways. Him as he spake, a demon in his ire smote with his lash and said, begone, vile slave, here are no women to be let for hire. I hastened to rejoin my faithful guide. They shortly came we, where appeared in sight a bridge projecting from the rocky side. O'er this fully easily our steps we drew, and mounting its high ridges on the right, to those eternal barriers bade adieu, arriving where the opening arch supplies a passage to the tortured souls. My guide exclaimed, now pause a while and fix thine eyes upon the rest of this ill-fated race, for as they've journeyed hither by our side, thou canst not hitherto have seen their face. From the old bridge we then surveyed the band that towards us from the other coast drew near, driven onward in like manner by the brand. To me unmasked my gracious master said, behold that mighty one approaching here, who in his sorrow deigns no tear to shred. How well yet he retains the royal air. Jason is this, whose skill and hardihood the golden fleece from ancient Colchis bare. Through Lemnos isle he passed upon his way, What time the inexorable females rude consigned their males to cruel death a prey, there with smooth words and winning flattery beguiled he her who first had practiced guile on her companions, young Hypsipyle. He left the damsel pregnant and forlorn, and here is punished for his treachery vile. Here too Medea's wrongs he's doomed to mourn. Deceivers like to him these sufferings share. This much let it suffice thee to have heard of the first round, and those in penance there. Now came we where the narrow causeway passed, in from the second bowl unto the third, its arms from one unto the other cast. Thence in the ensuing vault a tribe were seen, snorting and muttering with the filth oppressed, who smote themselves the while with hands unclean. The banks were crusted o'er with scum that rose in steam from the abyss, and formed a paste much to the annoyance of the eyes and nose. So deep the bottom that to gain a sight 'twas needful upon the bridge to clamber first, and take a survey from the utmost height. Here we arrived, and in the trench below spirits I saw in ordew foul immersed, which as it seemed to man is source did owe. And while I gazed beneath with zeal increased, one I beheld with so bedaubed a head, I could not tell the layman from the priest. Wherefore art thou so greedily inclined to look on me above the rest? He said. Because, I cried, if well I call to mind, thee have I seen when erst thy hair was dry, in Lucca bred. In Termini thy name, wherefore I scanned thee with more curious eyes. Striking his head to me, he then replied, 'Twas flattery plunged me in this place of shame, with which my tongue was never satisfied. Forthwith the master said, Now prithee stretch a little further and advance thy brow, so that thine eyesight might distinctly reach the head of that vile courtesan unclean, who tears herself from the filthy nails, and now appears recumbent, upright now is seen. Thais the harlot, who when Thraso cried, Say will the thanks I shall receive from thee be many? Oh, a mighty load, replied. This having viewed, our eyes may stated be.